Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Here to bring in part 5 of What If the Maximals crashed landed in Remnant. Link down description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 9, The Emerald Forest, Axelon. As Ruby and Yang were undergoing their initiation test at Beacon, the Maximals were doing their own things back at the base. Rattrap was on sentry duty, making sure nothing popped up on them, be it a stasis pod, an enemy attack, or anything else. Rhinox and Cheater were at a safe ring in Vale somewhere, seeing how similar it was to the one on patch. Dinobot was in the control room, looking over weapon blueprints that Ruby gave him. And Optimus was using this chance to enjoy the quiet and catch up on his reading. As Rattrap watched the screen, he turned around and looked at Dinobot, who had a grin on his face. "What you looking at, chopper face?" Rattrap asked, wondering what the ex-Predacon was looking at. Hearing the question, Dinobot looked over to Rattrap, trying to hide his interest. "If you must know, Ruby gave me some of her blueprints for weapons she designed. Some of them are quite interesting." As he told Rattrap this, he looked at design for a shield that doubled as a missile launcher. He might ask her to upgrade his own shield in such a manner. "What? You not happy with your gear or something?" Rattrap asked as he left his post and looked at some of the designs Ruby made that were scattered on the table. Dinobot just scowled at the Rat Maximal. "No. But a warrior can never have too many weapons." But before either could say anything else, the lift activated and Rhinox and Cheater entered the base. Rhinox saw the two of them became curious. "What are you two doing?" Dinobot answered the Rhino Maximal, shifting his gaze from Rattrap and the blueprints once again. "I am looking at weapon blueprints that Ruby made, while the rat is being annoying." Rattrap glared at Dinobot over the remark. But before the two could go at it, Optimus entered the room. The Gorilla Maximal took immediate notice at the two recently returned Maximals and greeted them. "Oh, good to see you and Cheater back, Rhinox. What did you learn out there?" Rhinox proceeded to give Optimus an explanation on what he and Cheater found. "From what we found, the safe ring in Vale, it is just like the one we found on patch. It uses the same type of rocks and formations with an energon source in the center." Hearing this, a thought crossed Optimus' mind. He voiced his thought to his crew. "Do you think we could call the aliens again?" Rattrap gave Optimus a look of disbelief, as if his leader had gone mad or something. "For booting up cold, have you lost your mind?" Optimus shook his head at Rattrap's accusation. Still, Dinobot and Cheater were beginning to wonder the same thing but said nothing. Only Rattrap could voice his mind so loudly. "No, but we have many questions about this world, its people, even the Grim. Whoever built the safe rings, they might be the only ones to give us the answers we need." It was a thought that ran through everyone's processors. But none of them were too keen on the idea. Especially if there was a slight chance the safe rings were created by Decepticons during the Great War long ago. After some silence, Cheater chose to speak up. "Optimus, we nearly lost you last time. What if next time, whoever the aliens takes won't give them back?" Despite his own thoughts, Optimus understood the second youngest Maximal's concern. It was then that Dinobot gave a rare grin as he gestured to Rattrap. He voiced a thought that he wouldn't mind come true. "Then perhaps we should have the rodent do it then." Rattrap jolted from his seat in indignity. "Hey!" Despite Rattrap's protest, the others got a chuckle out of it. After the laughter died down, Optimus continued to address the crew on the theory. "Very well. If you all feel that the idea of contacting the aliens is too dangerous, then I accept it and will hold back on it. While it's true that it's a dangerous idea, we must note that the Predacons might attack us while doing it." Dinobot reminded everyone, not that it was needed. "Noted." Optimus told him, remembering the Predacons as well. He then turned to Cheater and spoke. "Come on Cheater. Ruby voiced her concern about a possible Pred attack today. So we're going keeping an eye out for her." But before the gorilla and the cheetah could move, Rattrap's console sounded an alarm. Hearing it, Rattrap went over to the console and looked at what was on it. "Hey, Boss Monkey. You don't need to worry about the Predacons attacking Ruby. Because they're attacking us." The base shock from a blast fired at them. Rattrap brought up the outside camera, showing them at least 12 White Fang soldiers and one giant mech attacking the base. Acting fast, Optimus gave his orders. "Rattrap, Activate the auto guns while the rest of us head out. Dinobot, I know you've been studying the weapons on this planet. What is that thing out there? Dinobot looked to the image of the mech and went over his memory until he found a match. I believe that is an Atlasian Paladin -290. A new weapon the Atlas military has been working on. But from what I gathered, it shouldn't be ready yet. Hearing this, Optimus developed a feeling the Preds had a hand in its acquisition. Prime, cursed Optimus as he looked at the Paladin again as he gave his crew their orders. Cheater, Dinobot, Rattrap, Rhinox. You four take care of the White Fang. I'll take care of the Paladin. Heeding the gorilla's orders, the Maximals headed to the lift to engage in battle. As they went out, Rattrap looked at the Paladin before muttering something to himself. Us. Against that thing. We're all going to die. He activated the auto guns and went to join the others. Vale. The Emerald Forest. Meanwhile, back at Emerald Forest, the first-year students were flying through the air as many of them were using their personal landing strategies to land safely. As Ruby flew through the air, she saw a bird in front of her and, unfortunately for her, she couldn't stop and crashed through it. Birdie. No. Ruby then used her landing strategy of shooting crescent rows to slow herself down, then using its scythe mode to catch a tree branch and slow herself enough to land on the ground. Once on the ground, she rushed forward in search for her sister. Gotta find Yang. Gotta find Yang. Gotta find Yang. I need to be her partner so no one else gets involved in the Beast Wars. If more people get involved, then I don't know how I can live with myself. It's hard enough knowing both me and Yang are involved. But to involve a stranger in it. As Ruby thought about this, she came to a stop when she saw Weiss turning around. They stared at each other for a moment before Weiss started to walk away. At first Ruby was annoyed that she walked from her. But then thought it was for the best. But as she began to walk on, Weiss came back, grabbed her by her hood, and started to drag her. Crap, why did it have to be Weiss of all people? I bet John or Blake would be fine. At least I can get along with them. But Weiss. The two walked in silence for a while, Ruby not sure what to say, Weiss being more concerned with finding the temple. It wasn't long before the silence became aggravating to Ruby and decided to take a chance to speak with the Ice Queen of Beacon. Well, I guess if there is no choice. If Weiss and I are going to be on the same team, then maybe she should know about the Beast Wars. I mean, her family owns the largest dust empire in the world. And there's the energon deposits all over Remnant. Weiss, can I ask you something? And hearing the tone in her voice, Weiss stopped and looked at her before huffing her response. What? Ruby paused for a minute as she thought on how to ask her question. What would you do if, say, you had to work with a person who was involved in a big fight that could happen at any time, at any place? Would you still want to work with that person? Weiss had no idea what she meant by it. What are you talking about? Weiss asked her, wondering why the child in front of her asked such a strange question. But before Ruby could answer, she heard a familiar buzzing noise. Hearing this, Ruby froze and, unfortunately for her, it was enough time for Waspinator to show up as he flew down through the trees. Seeing Waspinator, Weiss gave a scream. What is that thing? She cried and brought out Mertanaster, a rapier that has Muttley dust actions. Weiss then felt Ruby put a hand on her shoulder. The heiress looked over to the girl and was surprised when saw such a serious look on Ruby's face. We need to leave now. But before they could run, a large scorpion jumped from behind a tree and landed in front of them. You're not going anywhere. Scorponic, terrorize. As Scorponic transformed into his Cybertronian form, Weiss' eyes widened. No matter how many times she replayed the memory in her head, couldn't believe what she just saw. Waspinator, terrorize. Waspinator called out as he transformed and began to fire at the two girls. Meanwhile, Weiss was so shocked at what she just saw that she didn't see the Predacons readying their weapons. But then everything went blurry as Ruby carried her away with her semblance. When they stopped, Ruby made sure Weiss was okay before slapping her. The shock of the slap snapped Weiss out of it. What are you doing? Glared Weiss as she held her cheek. But despite the sting on her cheek, she was more shocked at the look on Ruby's face. It was serious and filled with anger and worry. I was going to ask you the same thing. Why did you freeze up back there? Weiss immediately became annoyed at Ruby's protest. Even more so at the red-cloaked girl's manners toward her and the situation they had just escaped from. Well, who wouldn't when they see something like that? Weiss countered. Realizing this was getting them nowhere, Ruby sighed. I'm sorry about that, but right now, I'm being hunted. And with you near me, you're now a target, too. Weiss kept silent as Ruby continued, hoping to get an idea on what was happening. I know you have a lot of questions. But let me warn my sister first. Then I'll tell you what you need to know in order to get out of this. As Ruby finished, she prayed on the inside that it would be enough to keep the Schneeris sated. Weiss thought about it for a moment and figured that since Ruby knew more about this, she'll follow her lead. After all, this test had turned into a matter of survival. Fine. But make it fast. Ruby nodded and touched the Maximal symbol on her belt. Yang's location. A few minutes earlier. After Yang landed, she slowly wandered the forest in search of her sister. Hello. She continued to walk through the forest and failed to see a blur move by her. Hello, yelled Yang once more. Is anyone out there? She then heard some leaves shuffling behind her, causing her to wonder what it was. Is someone there? She asked, hoping they would reply and not be a Predacon or something like that. She went to the bush that was making the noise and pulled it apart to see what it was. Ruby, is that you? She asked, hoping it was her. Unfortunately for her, it was two Ursa charging at her. Nope. Seeing this, Yang jumped out of the way and activated her Ember Celica as she stood up. Then, one of the Ursa jumped at her. But Yang punched it in the stomach and sent it backwards. Meanwhile, the other Ursa charged at Yang, but she punched it in the jaw, sending up a bit, then roundhouse kicked it. Seeing that she had thing under control, Yang decided to ask them something as more of a joke. You guys wouldn't happen to have seen a girl in a red hood, would you? Like any Grimm, the Ursa growled in response. Yang gave a slight frown as the Ursa charged again. You could have said, no. The Ursa closest to Yang charged and swung its paws at her. But Yang was too fast for it and somersaulted away from it. Geez, you two couldn't hit the broadside of a bow. But Yang's taunt froze when she saw a single strand of her hair fall in front of her. If there was one thing about Yang you shouldn't do, it's cut her hair in battle. You, started Yang as the Ursa looked at each other, confused. You monsters. Yang let out an angered cry as fire exploded around her and charged at one of them. She sent several shotgun punches to it before starting a barrage of punches. When she was done, the Ursa went flying through several trees. Meanwhile, the other one was about to attack her from behind when someone dealt with it already. When the Ursa went down, Blake was standing behind it as she pulled her weapon from the beast's back. I could have taken him. Yang told her, jokingly. Blake had a sly smirk on her face. It was then that Yang's Maximal communicator went off. Yang, come in. Ruby's voice called over the channel as the sound surprised Blake and Yang. Yang knew Ruby wouldn't use it unless there was trouble. She pulled out her communicator from her pocket and spoke into it. I'm here, sis. What's going on? Blake gave Yang a confused look as Ruby spoke through. Yang, we've got Predacons here. I've already ran into Scorponok and Waspinator. Yang's eye went wide as she heard this. She temporarily forgot about Blake as she spoke into the communicator. Okay, Ruby. What's the plan? We've got to meet up, so we'll meet at the temple. Yang, do you have a partner yet? Yang looked to Blake for a second before responding. She knew that one way or another, the teams she and Ruby would be on would have to know about the Beast Wars. Yeah, it's Blake. Tell her everything she needs to know, Yang. I know it's not ideal, but it needs to be done. Also, the other Predacons might be here. So be careful. Then, the channel went dead. Hearing this, Yang looked at Blake, who was quiet the whole time. Yang was about to say something when she heard an all too familiar laugh. Looking up, Yang and Blake saw tarantulas crawling out from the top of a tree, laughing. You better listen to her. Because now you're in trouble. Tarantulas terrorize. As tarantulas transformed, he landed on the ground and was about to attack when he was shot at. Looking over, Yang saw that Blake had her weapon ready and pointing toward tarantulas. The barrel of her weapon, Gamble Shrouds, was smoking from firing the dust bullet. Blake gave Yang a side glacé before speaking. I'm guessing that's a Predacon. She asked. Yang nodded as tarantulas got up and glared at Blake. I don't know who you are, but you'll pay for that. But before tarantulas could do anything, Yang came up and punched him into a tree. The blow was so strong that the tree fell down forward toward Tarantulas. Seeing this, Tarantulas gaped. Oh no! The tree fell on top of him, pinning him under it. Seeing that he was down for now, Yang looked over at Blake as she'd put her weapon away for the time being. Blake kept a calm stare on Yang as the latter knew she had to tell the former the truth. So, you want the long version or the short version? She asked as they made their way to the temple. If the two of them waited a few more seconds, they would have seen Pterosaur in robot mode land next to the tree that landed on Tarantulas and push it off him. Seeing that he was now free, Tarantulas got up with a glare on his face as he said something. I really hate that girl, now. With Ruby and Weiss. Ruby had just finished explaining everything to Weiss, who was having a hard time processing everything, as they kept walking toward the direction of the temple. Weiss then went over the things Ruby listed as she kept count with her finger. Ruby nodded with each response. So, what you're saying is that two alien robot factions are now on Remnant and are fighting against each other. Worthless dust is called Energon, a powerful source of fuel that can power just about anything. And you and your sister are part of one side called the Maximals. Weiss then stopped and gave Ruby a blank stare before she said any more. If I didn't see those things earlier, I would have said you were crazy. But now I believe you. While Ruby was glad that Weiss believed her, she still felt guilty for getting Weiss into this mess. Ruby then spoke as her tone told Weiss that Ruby was upset. Weiss, I'm sorry that I got you involved in the Beast Wars. It was my goal to keep people out of it the best I could. But as you can see, that didn't happen. Ruby held her head down in shame. Weiss didn't know what to say to her after hearing that. Weiss then broke the silence. If you want to make it up to me, then make sure we make it out of this. Ruby raised her head, hearing that. Ruby then shook her head, clearing her thoughts and nodded. You're right, now let's see where our reinforcements are. She activated her communicator again. This time, on Optimus Primal's frequency. Ruby to Optimus. Ruby to Optimus. At the Axelon. Currently, Optimus was in the air and firing his shotgun at the Paladin when he heard the call. Optimus here, what's wrong Ruby? He asked as he dodged fire from the mech. Optimus, I'm in the Emerald Forest and it's crawling with Predacons. Where are you and the others at? Ruby asked him as she heard fire in the background. Hearing this didn't make things easier for Optimus. He did a quick look around him to see how the other Maximals were doing. Cheater and Rattrap were pinned behind some rocks, Rhinox was holding off several White Fang members with his machine guns, and Dinobot was in a sword fight with their leader. Adam, he thought his name was. Sorry, Ruby. But we're all busy right now. We're under attack as well. You and Yang are on your own for now. He told her as he dodged a punch from the mech, as he tried to slash it. Hearing this made Ruby worry, but she knew that there was nothing she could do at the moment. Okay. Be careful, and if I don't contact you within 3 hours, it means. She trailed off as they all knew what it meant. Optimus fired his missiles at the Paladin, taking an arm off the mech when he heard that. He was really hating the situation they were in, knowing that while the sisters may be strong, they couldn't handle the Predacons alone. I understand. I'll send help when I can. As he ended the talk, Optimus refocused on the mech in front of him with a new fire in his eyes as he fired everything he had at it. In the Emerald Forest, hearing the channel end, Ruby looked at Weiss with a grim look on her face. We're on our own, for now. So let's get to the temple and regroup. Weiss agreed with her as the two rushed to find the temple, encountering little to no grim resistance on the way. When the two of them finally reached the temple, they saw both Yang and Blake waiting for them. As the four regrouped, Ruby took charge. She gave the other two girls a quick glance over. Are you two okay? Yang held her sister's shoulders, letting her know they were alright. We're fine. We had a quick run-in with Tarantulas, but we took care of him easily enough. Blake nodded to further Yang's claim. Ruby then did a quick count on the Predacons that were presently in the forest. Well, we saw Scorponic and Waspinator. And if you saw Tarantulas, that just leave Pterosaur and Megatron unaccounted for. What if they're attacking in teams? Wondered Blake as she was surprisingly calm about everything. Ruby thought about it and knew the most likely answer. No. Megatron's ego wouldn't allow himself to let someone else finish us off. And after the power play Pterosaur just did, Megatron wouldn't leave him alone. Weiss then remembered something and spoke to the three of them. In case you're all forgot, we're still being tested. And the longer we wait, the worse it could be for us. Remembering the test, Ruby spoke up once again. Weiss is right. We should focus on the test right now and worry about the Predacons later. Seeing the three girls' looks of disbelief, Ruby explained further. If we finish the test, then we can be with the others at Beacon. And hopefully, the Predacon won't attack us there. After all, they have been quiet for some time now and haven't made any big moves in public. So it's our best bet. The others thought about it and agreed. The two pairs proceeded into the temple and saw that the artifacts were chess pieces. And without realizing it, the both teams grabbed the White Knight pieces. Seeing that they got what they came for, Ruby turned to face the girls. Okay, we got what we needed. We'll go through the forest as fast as we can so the flyers can't see us from the skies. We have no idea if reinforcements from the Maximals will come, so we're on our own. We'll have to count on each other and help each other out the best we can. Ruby then threw her fist in the air like a warrior giving out a war cry. So let's transform and roll out. The girls were inspired at first. But when she said her last line, it confused them. What's that supposed to mean, you dolt? Questioned Weiss as the others shared similar looks on their faces about what she said. Ruby then realized what she said and blushed. Sorry. Took someone else's catchphrase. Let's go. Ruby then rushed into the forest with the others following behind her. If they waited a bit longer they would have seen the girl with orange hair coming riding in on an Ursa and John flying through the air. As the four of them ran, Weiss matched her pace to Yang and spoke to the blonde. I'm curious about something. How can she such a good leader if she's so young? And the truth this time. Yang wondered if she should tell her or not before finally coming up with an answer. If I told you the truth right now, you would stop, and right now we don't need that. When we get through this, I'll tell you. Remembering their predicament, Weiss reluctantly agreed with her. They reached the middle of a clearing when a missile landed in front of them, causing them all to stop. They heard a buzzing sound and saw Waspinator flying toward them as he stopped in front of them. They then heard footsteps to their sides and saw Scorponok on their left and Tarantulas on their right. And finally, they heard jets from above and saw Pterosaur fly in behind them. Seeing this, the girls formed a mini circle as they got their weapons ready. Ruby got Crescent Rose ready while Yang activated Ember Celica. Weiss drew Myrtanaster and Blake brought out Gamble Shroud and put it into it clever and sword form. Scorponok then started to laugh as he pointed a pincher at the girls. It's over for you two and your friends. Just make it easy on yourselves and go down easy. The girls glared at him as Ruby whispered to her team. Yang, take Tarantulas. You have the most experience with him. Blake, take Waspinator, he's the flying bug. You should have no problem with him. Weiss, take Scorponok. He only uses missiles that he fires from his pincers. I'll take Pterosaur. Then Ruby disappeared in a flash of rose petals as they then heard Pterosaur screaming. Looking at him, both Predacons and Huntresses saw that Ruby had both of her silver thorns in his back as Pterosaur screamed in pain. Pterosaur then started to fly up, causing Ruby to let go of him. But the damage was done as he now had two holes in his back that were leaking energon. Even with internal repairs working, he was in real bad shape. He then turned to face Ruby with his shoulder cannons ready, only to be hit in the chest with Crescent Rose in sniper mode. Meanwhile, Yang was giving Tarantulas a beating with a shotgun punch after shotgun punch. Tarantulas then had enough and fired his machine gun legs to get her off him, which worked. He then drew his gun and fired at her, and with no time to react, Yang crossed her arms and took the hit as it sent her back with some damage to Ember Celica. Looking at her opponent, Yang's eyes turned red and she rushed him. Tarantulas was caught off guard with such a reckless move, and before he knew it, Yang punched him with enough force to send him flying into another tree, causing this one fell on him as well. Tarantulas could look up in horror as another tree pinned him once more. Seeing that Tarantulas was done for, Yang's eye reverted to their normal coloring and she looked at her work. Blake was having a rather easy time with Waspinator, like Ruby told her. Every time Waspinator tried to shoot her, she used her semblance and avoided each shot. And each time, Waspinator wondered what happened. Soon, Blake was close enough and used her cleaver on Waspinator, cutting the arm that held his gun off. She then turned her sword into a gun and fired into Waspinator's face. With no warning, Waspinator's head fell off his body. Blake looked on in fear as she never killed anyone before, but relaxed a little when she heard him speak. Waspinator has a terrible headache. After hearing that, Blake let out a sigh of relief. Weiss, meanwhile, was dodging all the shots that Scorponic was firing at her. After dodging another missile, several white glyphs appeared around her. Scorponok wondered what they were until each one fired icicles at him. With no time to dodge them, each one struck him as one jammed the rocket launcher on his right arm. Seeing this, he went to pull it out, but in doing so left him wide open. A black glyph appeared under Weiss as she then rushed at him with impressive speed. Weiss slashed him several times and with one last thrust sent him to the ground. Seeing that it was over, Weiss started to walk away, unaware that Scorponic got back up and aimed his left launcher at her. Die! He screamed at her as he fired. Time seemed to slow down for Weiss as she saw the missile coming towards her. Then, out of nowhere, she felt someone pushing her out of the way. She then heard the missile hit whoever pushed her out of the way. When time went back to normal for her, she saw Ruby on the ground, holding her stomach in pain. Weiss then saw red liquid coming from Ruby's fingers. Blood. Weiss just shut down for a moment at seeing this. I was nothing but mean to her since I met her. She could have let me take the shot, but she pushed me out of the way and took it herself. Seeing Ruby's position, Young and Blake both saw this, rushed over to Ruby's side. While they checked up on Ruby, Scorponic couldn't believe his luck. He was aiming for that white-haired girl, but Ruby jumped in front of the shot and took it. They came to end Ruby and now it looked like the Allspark was glowing down on him. Now to finish the job. Scorponic said to himself as he took aim at Ruby once more and fired. This time, nothing got in the way of his shot and it exploded on contact. As the dust flew in the air, Scorponic felt good about himself. He indulged in the thought of the praise he would get from Megatron. But when the dust cleared, he couldn't believe his optics. There in front of the girls was a white glyph from earlier with the white-haired girl pointing her weapon in front of it. What? Cried out Scorponic as he couldn't believe that he missed. Meanwhile, Young and Blake checked Ruby's injury and it didn't look good for her. Her aura took most of the blow, but it still broke skin and left her with a big chunk of her stomach bleeding. Young. She need medical attention now. Blake told her companion as Weiss kept the shield up. But Weiss knew it was her fault because she underestimated Scorponic. Then, Ruby did something no one expected, she started to get up. Blake tried to push her down, but Ruby pushed on. Ruby, you shouldn't move. Blake tried to reason with her, but Ruby kept moving until she was standing. The silver-eyed girl then glared at Scorponic, who didn't seem fazed at all. Ruby then walked forward, almost tripping a few times, but was able to walk past Weiss's shield. As she looked at Scorponic, Ruby couldn't contain her hate and anger for him anymore. This was a time for new students to enter Beacon and he turned it into a hunting ground. As she thought more about it, she felt something build up inside of her. When she felt it was ready, she let him have it. Scorponic, be gone, yelled Ruby as a white energy surged from her. It was so bright that everyone had to cover their eyes. When the light died down, everyone, even the Predacons, were shocked to see the state Scorponic was in. Lying on the ground was Scorponic, but his body was twisted and turned and bent in ways no Cybertronian should be able to bend. He was in so much pain that he went into stasis lock to deal with it. The other Predacons that were still active back away from Ruby as Pterosaur said the smartest thing he's ever said since coming to this world. Retreat. As Pterosaur cried, he shot at the tree that was pinning tarantulas before quickly grabbing Scorponic. He had to show this to Megatron. Tarantulas changed into beast mode and ran while Waspinator put his head back on, grabbed his arm and flew away as fast as he could. The girls witnessed the Predacons retreat and didn't care as they rushed over to Ruby, who was just barely standing. By the time they reached her, her legs gave out and she collapsed on the ground. As they checked her, they saw her wound was closed for now. But they knew they needed to get her help and fast. It was then they heard the sound of jets and without saying anything the girls formed a circle around Ruby. Blake was the first to see where the sound was coming from. She pointed in the sky as they saw a figure coming their way. There. As the figure got closer, Young got a good look and relaxed. It's okay. That's Optimus. Hearing this, Weiss and Blake relaxed slightly. Optimus came in for a landing and they saw he wasn't in good shape either. He had bullet marks all over his body. Optimus looked at the three of them and then saw Ruby on the ground. He frowned at the sight, his gears churning with fear. What happened here? He asked Yang as he rushed over to them as fast as he could. To be honest, I don't know. After Ruby got hit by a missile, she released some weird light, and when it died down, Scorponic was in terrible shape. Yang told him as Optimus gave Ruby a quick scan to check her. Seeing that she was okay for the time being, he looked at the other two girls. Weiss and Blake froze as Optimus turned his attention to the two of them. Greeting. My name is Optimus Primal, leader of the Maximals. The two girls remained frozen until Weiss took a step forward. She introduced herself, but anxiety was obvious in her voice. Greetings, Optimus Primal. I am Weiss Schnee. Ruby has informed Blake and I about you already. Optimus looked at the two new girls, then back to Ruby. She needed medical attention and fast. Okay. We should finish this talk back at base, then. As he went to grab Ruby, Optimus felt on his shoulder. Looking at who it was, he saw that it was Blake as she spoke. We're being tested right now. If we all disappear, people will notice. Hearing this, Optimus, as he knew she was right. He turned to the three teenagers and spoke again. Okay. But when you can, slip away for a couple hours. Come to the base and bring Ruby. The CR chamber will fix her up as good as new. But before anyone could say anything, they heard someone coming towards them. Optimus ran towards the forest edge and disappeared from sight just as Glinda Goodwitch walked out from the tree line. Glinda looked at the area and saw it was a battle zone. She was about to react, but stopped when she saw Ruby on the ground and rushed over to her. What happened here? She demanded as she knelt beside Ruby, checking her over. Knowing that Glinda would not believe that they were attacked by Predacons, Yang quickly fabricated a story. One that she hoped Glinda would accept. There were Grimm. A lot of them. We fought them off, but I misfired and Ruby took the hit. We were checking her over before we made our next move. Glinda checked Ruby's wound and saw that a shot from Yang's weapon could cause something like this. And if Grimm were here, it would explain the damage to the area. She then looked over at the other two girls. Is this true? She asked them as she looked at them closely. It is. Blake told her with a straight face. She wanted to learn more about the Cybertronians first before deciding what to do. Glinda studied her for a moment and saw she was telling the truth. She then looked over at Weiss waiting for her answer. Weiss on the other hand didn't know what to say. She wasn't sure if she should tell her the truth or the lie Yang told her. As she thought about it, she saw Optimus at the tree line behind Glinda, looking at her. As she looked at him, she saw he was merely watching, waiting to see what she would say, not as a Schnee, but as Weiss. Seeing this, she made up her mind. It's not all true, started Weiss as everyone looked at her wondering what she was going to say. Yang's shoot didn't hit Ruby. It was going to hit me. I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings and Ruby took the shot for me. If it wasn't for her, I would be the one on the ground. Yang and Blake let out a small sigh of relief, glad that Weiss was only telling a half-truth. Weiss looked over at Optimus and saw him nod to her before transforming and walking off. Glinda took in what Weiss said along with the motions of her body language and somewhat believed her. She had the feeling she wasn't telling her the whole truth, but decided to deal with Ruby's injury first. Very well, then. All three of you come with me back to Beacon. We will give Ruby the proper medical treatment there. She lifted Ruby up, using her semblance to keep her level. As the girls followed, behind her Blake wondered something. Professor, why are you out here? You said earlier that no teachers were going to get involved in the test. Glinda, who merely looked back at her. The cameras all died and Ozpin got worried about everyone. He sent the teachers out to make sure everyone was okay. Ruby here was the only one hurt that I know of. The girls looked at each other and knew why the cameras died, but stayed quiet about it. As they walked back, Weiss and Blake looked at each other and both asked the other, what did we get involved in? And neither one had the answer for the other. Chapter 10. We are Team RWBY. Beacon. Ozpin's office. It was an hour after Glinda brought Ruby to the nurse's office upon their return from the forest. She left the rest of the girls' team in the infirmary before she went to find Ozpin. The headmaster had to know what had happened. After going over everything they learned, the two sat in Ozpin's office, mulling over everything. After another hour, the nurse came by and gave them the report on Ruby's condition. Glinda looked at the report and breathed a sigh of relief. She was glad to see that Ruby Rose would be back on her feet in a couple days. It looks like Miss Rose will make a full recovery. We are lucky it wasn't too bad, she told Ozpin as he looked at a screen before him. Very lucky indeed. Looking at how the camera shut down, we found out that a virus infected them, causing the blackout. I don't need to tell you what that means. Hearing this, Glinda was shocked. Then that would mean that someone targeted some of our students, she thought. She then voiced her concern to the headmaster. Then, that means whoever did this, their target was one of those 4 girls. Ozpin took a sip of coffee as he thought it over. And those 4 girls are keeping quiet about it, he added, still thinking on the matter. Upon hearing Ozpin's answer, Glinda stood up from her chair, showing signs of anger, frustration, and worry. Then we should separate them all and find out the truth. However, Ozpin had another idea. Or we wait and see what happens. Glinda was surprised at how calmly Ozpin was taking this. One of their students could be in danger, if not the whole academy, and Ozpin refused to press on. Seeing Glinda's shocked expression, Ozpin answered his longtime colleague. I know you don't agree. But the fact is they lied to you about what happened. Which means they don't want us to know the truth. Whatever happened to Miss Rose, they wish to tread with caution, and I fear they believe we would get involved in something we're not supposed to. Glinda mulled over the idea, but she still didn't feel convinced to let this slide. She then asked Ozpin a question in a worried tone. But what if whoever did this comes back? Ozpin, despite acknowledging the question, remained steadfast. I know that this is a risk. But we have more pressing matters to look after. The girls held off their attackers once, hopefully they can do it again. We will assign the 4 of them as a team. That way, whatever they are hiding, it will be easier to keep it. He then gave a steely gaze at Glinda. A sign that he was more serious than ever. I don't like it any more than you, but we must choose what's more important. Could it be random attack on our students, or finding out who attacked Amber? Upon mentioning Amber, Glinda remained silent. Ozpin was right. A random attack, despite the outcome, was minuscule in comparison with their main goal. And if those girls got attacked again, at least they would have each other to watch out for. And hopefully, a teacher would be nearby next time to help them. Ozpin then stood up with his coffee mug in hand. Perhaps we should talk to the girls again before making up our minds. Glinda agreed with him as the 2 of them made their way to the infirmary. Beacon Infirmary. It had been a few hours since Glinda brought Ruby to the infirmary, and the 3 girls that accompanied them were at her bedside. Weiss paced around impatiently, wanting answers for what was going on, and without Ruby, she wouldn't get them. Not to mention that she blamed herself for the girls' injuries. If she had been more focused, stronger, perhaps she would have taken out that scorpion robot. Weiss scowled at herself. This was not what a Schnee would do. At least, the Schnees before her father. Her scowl grew as she thought of him. Blake had a book open, though she had not turned a page since she opened it. Like Weiss, she was also thinking about what had happened. The events that played out haunted her, and her instincts were running wild. Something was wrong, and somehow, the White Fang was involved. No one but a small few at Beacon knew her secret. She was a faunus. A cat faunus, to be precise, with her cat ears hidden with just a little black bow. What's more, she was once a member of the White Fang, but left when the once peaceful protest group transformed horrifically into a terrorist organization. Why she sensed the White Fang was involved, she did not know. But one thing for sure, Blake wanted answers as well. Yang wanted to punch something. But after punching 3 holes in the infirmary's walls, Glinda returned at the behest of the doctors to tell Yang to refrain from continuing. Still, Glinda could not help but understand Yang's predicament. Ruby was her half-sister according to their records, and they grew up together. So it was natural that she would be so worried. Yang ceased her pacing when the doctor came out. It looks like she will be fine. Severely weakened, but fine. I have patched up her physical injuries and she had just woken up. You can go see her. Hearing this, the 3 girls entered the room, where Ruby was lying in a bed. Her clothes had been replaced by a hospital gown, and she had various bandages on her body. Her silver eyes weakly looked to Yang, who immediately was by her side as the others came close. Hey, Ruby. How you feeling? She asked. Ruby took in a deep breath as she examined her surroundings before answering her sister. I'm fine, though I feel like I got ran over by several trucks at once. And I'm very tired. Weiss wanted to say, sorry, to her, but could even bring herself to look at her. Blake remained silent as well, worried about the girl and her own thoughts as Ruby spoke. So what happened? Young looked to their two teammates for a moment before she answered Ruby's question. After I accidentally shot you, sorry about that, by the way, Blake and I tried to help you while Weiss fought Scorponic. You stood up in some sort of trance, and sent some sort of strange semblance at him, turning him into scrap. Pterosaur, Waspinator, and Tarantulas took his body back to their base before you passed out. Optimus came by and told us to bring you to the Axelon as soon as we can. Weiss and Blake met Optimus and agreed to come with us when we get you out before Glinda came and got us. We told her that we were overrun by a large horde of Grimm as we brought you back here. We've been here ever since. Ruby sat there as she took everything in. She looked at Blake and Weiss and spoke in confusion. Why did you lie to a teacher? Blake thought about before answering her. I figured I would learn everything first and then make my decision. Besides, it's not like Glinda would believe us or take this as calmly, as we are right now. Ruby smiled slightly at her answer, still weak from the battle. Everyone then looked over at Weiss for her answer. Seeing them all look at her, Weiss had no idea what to tell them. She, herself, was even unsure why she lied to Glinda. But it was at that moment that Ozpin and Glinda walked into the infirmary, causing all four of them to shift their attention to them. Ozpin saw that the four of them were together and that Ruby was awake. Hopefully, they would get a full picture of what had happened out there. Miss Rose. It's good to see you are awake. Ozpin and Glinda walked into the room and stood at the end of the bed as he continued. I know it is sudden, but we need a statement from you about what happened today while it is still fresh in your mind. Ruby knew this was coming and already had a story in place, remembering the story Yang had just told her. Well, when I entered the forest, the first person I meet was Weiss. We then went to the temple where we meet both Blake and Yang. We choose to go back to the school together. On the way there we ran into a large horde of Grimm. As we fought them off, I saw Yang fire off a shot that missed its target and was heading towards Weiss. Without even thinking, I rushed towards her and pushed her out of the way, only to get hit myself. That was the last thing I remember before waking up here. Yang, Weiss, and Blake breathed an inward sigh of relief as both Ozpin and Glinda nodded in satisfaction. The two took in what she said and knew that it was the truth mixed with half-truths and white lies. However, it was difficult to tell what was the truth and what was not. Seeing that they wouldn't say anything else of their own volition, Ozpin decided to let it go, for now. Very well then, I should inform you all that orientation is over and that teams have been selected. With Ruby unable to attend, I thought it would best to let you all be here. He then paused to let them all understand what he meant before continuing. That being said, the four of you will be known as Team RWBY. Led by Ruby Rose. Hearing this, all four girls had different reactions. Yang gave her sister a hug. Not a strong one, but strong enough to show how proud she was. Blake nodded and agreed with it after seeing her in action. Ruby was surprised, but knew she could do it as long as she remembered what Alpha Trion told Optimus Prime when he first started. And Weiss didn't know what to think. On one hand, she knew Ruby could lead in quite well. But on the other hand, she felt she should lead due to her upbringing and status. She then looked at Ruby again and wasn't sure what to think anymore. Ever since I meet her, she's turned my world upside down. I don't even know if I'm even ready for all this. Weiss was then brought out of her thoughts by Glinda, catching the attention of the others as well. I've just uploaded your room number onto your scrolls with access keys to get in. Your belongings are already in your room, waiting for you. You have the next 3 days to get to know your teammates before classes begin. She then looked at Ruby. Since you're up, you must wait for the doctor to allow you to leave. Your team can wait here if they want or leave. She and Ozpin left the room, leaving Team RWBY alone. After waiting for a few minutes, Ruby addressed her new team. Once I get out of here, I'm going to the Axelon. If any of you wish to join me you can. They nodded, silently agreeing with her. After an hour of waiting for Ruby to be released, the four of them headed to their new room with Ruby sitting in a wheelchair, pushed by her sister. As they walked down a hall, they reached their room. But before they could enter, the door across from theirs opened, revealing John. John saw the four of them and focused on Ruby. He spoke to her, worried about the first friend he made at the school. "Ruby, what happened to you?" Ruby waved a hand, trying to hide her pain. "I'm fine. Just a little misfire is all." John bought it without a doubt. Pyrrha came out of the same room as John did, no doubt on the same team as John. "There you are, John. We still need to set up our room." She trailed off as she saw the state Ruby was in. John then put a hand on her shoulder and gave her a thumbs up. Pyrrha sighed as she looked on. John then turned to the girls and spoke. "I guess this is why you weren't at the ceremony, then." Ruby nodded to confirm it. "So what team are you guys on?" she asked them. "We are on Team JNPR. John is our leader," Pyrrha told them. Team RWBY couldn't believe it. "You're kidding, right?" Weiss asked her. She thought at least Pyrrha would be the one in charge, seeing that she was the best student in the academy. Not John of all people. Hearing Weiss' accusation, John slumped down in despair. Seeing this, Ruby decided to share some advice with him that would hopefully will cheer him up. "John, I heard someone say this once. The greatest mistake one can make is not to listen to those around you. For they could be a spring of knowledge that you do not have." It was a saying she heard from Alpha Trion. Hearing this, the others looked at her, confused. So, she explained it to them. "John, we, as leaders, are just people. We make mistakes all the time like anyone else. But the worst thing we could do is not listen to those around us. They could have the skills and knowledge we don't have. So it's our job to listen to what they have to say and even ask them for help when we need it. That way, we become better leaders and people." Hearing this, no one was able to say anything because they never thought they would hear something like that from Ruby of all people. It was so wise and profound that it was clearly uncharacteristic of Ruby, even to those who didn't know her well enough to know about the matrix of leadership in Ruby's possession. After a minute of silence, John was the one to say something first with a smile on his face. "Thanks, Ruby. I've never really thought of it like that." Pyrrha smiled at the way John took this. Gone was his doubt and now was being replaced by someone who was more confident in himself. John nodded to Pyrrha as they head back to their room. "I hope you get better soon, Ruby." Once they were alone in the hallway, the girls entered their room. The room was an average size for 4 people with a bed for each of them. There was a window in the middle of the wall they were facing and a bathroom to the side. After they settled in the room for a bit, Ruby faced Weiss and Blake with a serious look on her face. "I'm going to give you both a chance to get out of this. If you come with me to the Maximal base, there is no going back." Weiss and Blake looked to each other, giving their options some serious thought. This was truly a critical decision with the look Ruby was giving them. Even fun-loving Yang had a similar look. Still, their curiosity was stronger. They gave it a little more thought before Blake spoke first. "I'm going with you. I'm curious about what's going on. And since we are a team now, it's a good idea not to keep secrets. Although I can keep it from unwanted ears." "Blake, you hypocrite." Blake scolded herself mentally. Weiss was the next to give her answer, an equally determined look on her face. "Well, Blake's right. A team shouldn't keep secrets from each other. And I can keep a secret. Besides, there is so many questions that I'd really like answers to right now." Hearing Weiss and Blake's choices, Ruby nodded to Yang before turning on her communicator. "Ruby to Axelon. I need a ground bridge. Coming with Yang and 2 others. Lock in on my coordinates." Quote. After her request was voiced, a green vortex opened up in front of them, shocking Weiss and Blake. Yang scooped up Ruby in her arms and carried through the vortex. Blake looked as Weiss and offered for her to go first. Seeing this, Weiss walked up to it and slowly walked through it with Blake following. When Blake exited the vortex, she saw that she and Weiss were in a cave. They heard a whistle and saw Yang at the entrance of the cave as she gave them a wave over. Once at the entrance, the newcomers saw the Axelon for the first time. Both girls just stared in awe of it. Sure, it was damaged, but it was like nothing neither of them had ever seen before. They followed Yang and Ruby as made their way inside. Upon entering the ship, Weiss and Blake were once again speechless. It was then that they saw Optimus Primal, greeting them in robot mode. "Ah, you made it. Welcome to the Axelon. Or what's left of it." He then looked to Yang and Ruby. Yang, could you put Ruby into the CR chamber? Yang nodded as she placed her sister in the machine. Once Ruby was settled, Yang backed away as the doors to the CR chamber closed. Weiss looked at the chamber curiously. What is a CR chamber, anyway? She asked as Optimus typed in the chamber's commands on the console. It was then that Rhinox entered the room in robot mode, surprising Weiss and Blake by his looks and size. Having heard Weiss' question, he answered as he monitored the machine. It is a machine that repairs and replaces damaged parts on Cybertronians, for which it was made for. But I made some modifications so that it can work for organics. But if my calculations are correct, it will take longer than it would with us. Weiss and Blake could only stare at Rhinox. While he still monitored the CR chamber's first organic repair test, Rattrap walked in towards them in beast mode. You know, if you keep your mouths open like that, something could fly in. Seeing Rattrap, Weiss screamed and jumped into Rhinox's arms. There's a giant rat here, screamed Weiss as Blake licked her lips without anyone seeing it. Hearing this, Rattrap looked offended while Yang and Optimus were trying not to laugh. Dinobot also stifled a laugh as he entered the control room in beast mode. I always knew you made females scream in fear whenever you're near, rodent. Dinobot then sniffed the air, catching some sort of smell. Does anyone else smell a cat in the room? He asked. Blake looked worried, thinking her secret might be out. Thankfully, Cheater entered the room in robot mode, not knowing that his appearance was helping someone out at the moment. That's probably me, Dinobot. Seeing that Cheater was a cat himself, Blake let out a gasp of air she didn't know she had. She released it silently, so that none would hear her. Seeing that everyone was present, Optimus got them on track. Alright, everyone, let's get down to business here. He then turned to Dinobot and Rattrap. It might be better if you're in robot mode for this. Reluctantly, the Velociraptor and Giant Rat transformed into their robot modes. With Rattrap's transformation, Weiss relaxed a bit before leaving Rhinox's arms. The Maximals and Yang sat down at the table with Weiss and Blake looking unsure, joining them. Once the two girls sat down, Optimus began, motioning each Maximal as he introduced them. Well, let's get started. This is Rhinox, Cheater, Rattrap, and Dinobot, the other members of the Maximals. We are beings from another world called Cybertron. Vacuo, the dark side. To say Megatron was angry was an understatement. He was so furious, he had no idea who to punish first. Adam went and attacked the Maximals without permission and came back empty-handed. Not to mention he and his team had lost the Paladin they had recently gained. While Scorponic and the other Predacons went and attacked Ruby, also without permission, and the Scorpion Predacon somehow came back nearly offline. The others told him that it was Ruby and some Flash that did it to him. Until he was done in the CR tank, Megatron held no idea what truly happened. Currently he was in his commanded chair, facing Adam. So tell me, why did you attack the Maximals? Adam answered, masking any fear that was manifesting inside him. To show them our power. We have just been sitting here, doing nothing in the war. I agree with you about needing to gather our forces and supplies. But we can't let our enemy do it, as well. We outnumber them 10-1 and yet we don't use it. It was then that Megatron started to get an idea of what was going on. I see. So you're saying I haven't been active enough in this war? Adam nodded. Yes, they attacked our base and destroyed the mega cannon. And in return, all we did was increase our defenses. Despite the disobedience in the White Fang leader, Megatron could see his point. They had been slacking in the offensive as of late. However, he needed to keep Adam under control, lest he and his Faunus brethren rebelled against him. It would be wise to play along for now and see how far this would go. I see. Then what would you have us do? Adam answered, giving Megatron his thoughts on the matter, equally on his toes. I agree with your plan on gathering forces. But we need to do other things as well. We need to show the Maximals not to mess with us as well as the world. We should strike while the iron is hot. Megatron merely chuckled at the motion. But before Adam could say anything else, a White Fang member walked into the room. A risky move unless it was something urgent. Lord Megatron. Adam. Scorponic is done recovering in the CR tank. Hearing this, Megatron got up and went over to a hover platform and went to the CR tanks. As he left, Adam followed. But his fist clenched up tightly at hearing one of his men call Megatron, Lord. Thankfully, the White Fang was not at all comfortable with having an alien lord when they have been fighting oppression against their kind. Still, it was best not to anger the hand that feeds you. And the White Fang needed the Predacon's tech. Once Megatron and Atom got to the tanks, they saw Scorponic rising out of the tank as he tried to regain his bearings. "Ah, Scorponic, how nice is it to have you back with us," started Megatron as he then grabbed Scorponic neck with his T-Rex head as he started to choke him. "Just so I can terminate you myself." Wanting answers as well, Atom spoke out to calm Megatron. "Megatron, calm down. We need to find out what they did to him first. Then you can end him." Megatron mentally agreed with him and reluctantly released Scorponic. Megatron then leaned into Scorponic face with an angry glare in his eyes. "You better give me a good reason to why I should let you stay online after what you did." Scorponic started to shake as he told Megatron what happened. "Of course, Lord Megatron. I just was following Torchwick's advice about taking care of that red-cloaked girl when she was alone. But she was joined by that yellow-haired girl. She also had 2 new females with her. The first had white hair and the Schnee logo on her back and a rapier. The other had black hair and a black bow on her head wielding a gun that can turn into a sword and a whip. We ambushed them and I even hurt the red-cloaked girl bravely. But then her eyes glowed and then this burst of energy came out of her. The last thing I remember was intense pain before waking up here." Hearing this made Megatron wonder what could cause it. As far as he knew, humans of this world could only have one semblance, and that Ruby girl's semblance was speed. So how was she able to create that blast that damaged Scorponic? And there was that time she led the Maximals so well when that alien probe was here. What is she? Meanwhile, Atom was glad he had his mask on so no one saw his eyes widen when Scorponic told them about the black-haired girl. It had to be Blake. There was no other girl that he knew that had black hair and wore a bow on her head. Especially since Scorponic clearly described Gamble's Shroud, Blake's signature weapon. As the two thought about what Scorponic said, they didn't know that Cinder was also listening in on what he said. Hearing what the cloaked girl could do, she began to think. Could this mean she was a descendant of the Silver-Eyed Warriors? If so, it could pose a problem to her once she got free. But for now, let them all fight. She could wait and hope they would kill each other in the process. She then left the area before anyone could see her as she wondered what her next move will be. Vale, Patch, the Axelon. Meanwhile, back at the Axelon, Optimus finished bringing the 2 girls up to speed and both were silent. Yang also explained to the bots what had happened, minus the Matrix, until the situation with Weiss and Blake was taken care of. She also told the bots that Ozpin made the 4 of them a permanent team named Team RWBY with Ruby as the leader. There was a bit of chuckling at the irony, though Weiss and Blake knew not why. It took some time for Weiss and Blake to process the information before Weiss spoke in anger. "I knew that those dirty Faunus in the White Fang were no good. First, they terrorized my family. Now, they're trying to take over the world. It shows that you can't trust Faunus at all." Blake gave Weiss a dirty look and it looked like she was going to say something. However, Dinobot cut her off. "Stop right there, girl. To judge the many for the actions of a few isn't right or fair." Weiss then pointed a finger at him, her anger replacing the fear of the Velociraptor bot. "And you? How do we know you really left the Predacons and aren't some type of sleeper agent waiting for the right time to strike?" Finally, someone who agrees with me. Now if she only took back that, being scared of Rat's bit, Rattrap muttered to himself, knowing he would get glares and a lecture if he voiced it too loud. Hearing Weiss' accusation, Dinobot eyes turned green in anger. "You have no right to say that. I am a true warrior and wouldn't do something so cowardly. You, on the other hand, we know nothing about and have only seen one battle." Hearing this, Weiss glared back at Dinobot, while the others watched on, wondering what would happen next. But before anything could happen, Optimus stepped in. "That's enough. Both of you." The arguing pair backed down on Optimus' orders, but continued to glare at each other. Optimus sighed as he spoke. "Perhaps we need a break. Cheater, could you and Yang give these 2 a quick tour of the Axelon?" Cheater, seeing how things were, gave Optimus a thumbs up. "Can do, Big Bot." He stood up with Yang and gathered Weiss and Blake before leaving the bridge. Seeing that Weiss was gone for the time being, Dinobot was able to calm down. With things under control, Optimus turned his attention to the CR chamber as the chamber opened up and Ruby walked out, good as new. Knowing she could hear what was going on while in the chamber, Optimus spoke to her. "So, what do you want to do with the two of them?" Ruby gave Optimus a confused look and folded her arms. "Why are you asking me? You're our leader." Optimus chuckled lightly as he answered her. "Yes, but remember that you're in charge of the human members of the team." Ruby mentally slapped her forehead, remembering that Optimus was right. She was also named the leader of Team RWBY according to Professor Ozpin. Placing a hand on her chin, Ruby voiced her thoughts. "I'm not sure. Weiss has that attitude that make her think she's better than everyone. And she lowered her guard in the fight. Still, she is a capable fighter and there may be times where we may need the Schnee connection. Especially when Energon is concerned. But with Blake, we know nothing about her. For all we know, she could be a mole. Then again, I could be wrong about that. She is a really good fighter as well. Not to mention she came to my side when I got injured. But until we know otherwise, we shouldn't treat her as if she was a spy. All in all, I'm not sure. Maybe we give them a chance and see how it goes. But in the end, it's their choice." Hearing this, Optimus understood where she was coming from. "Alright, when they get back, we'll ask them what they want to do." There was a bit of a silence before Ruby thought of something and brought out a piece of paper. "Dinobot, could you do me a favor?" Dinobot listened in as Ruby asked her question. "Could you and Rhinox make this gear for Weiss and Blake?" As the others gave her weird looks on the question. Seeing this, Ruby elaborated as to why. "I know what you're thinking. But regardless of their choice, the Predacons might attack them again. I want them to be able to defend themselves if that happens. After all, they never asked to be part of this war. Just like Yang and I." Hearing this, the bots understood her reasoning. Looking to Optimus, Dinobot waited for an answer. He didn't have to wait long as Optimus nodded. "Do it." Dinobot grabbed the paper and walked off to the armory to get the supplies he needed. As he walked off, the others returned and saw Ruby out and about. They then ran over to her out of relief and worry. Yang was the first to speak as she examined her sister. "Ruby, how are you feeling?" Ruby chuckled as spoke. "I'm fine. Definitely a lot better than I was before. It's like I've never got hurt at all." From the way Ruby spoke, the three girls could hardly believe that this was the girl that nearly died saving them from the Predacons. They would have to check for a scar when they got back to their dormitory. Weiss looked over at the CR chamber with awe. If the Schnee Dust Company had something like this. Her thought trailed off as she knew that getting this technology would be next to impossible. But if she stayed with them and got to know them, then maybe. But little did she know that Rattrap saw her look and knew that she wanted something, and judging by the way she was staring at the CR chamber, he had a good guess as to what it was. Ruby's face once again became serious as she looked at the two newcomers. "Weiss, Blake, we need to talk." Hearing her tone, both Weiss and Blake gave her their full attention as Ruby led them aside to talk privately while Yang talked shop with Cheater and the other bots discussing the situation on their end. The two girls listened to Ruby as she spoke, once again in a serious tone. "After learning everything and how you acted with your first fight against the Predacons, we are offering both of you a position in the Maximals. This is your choice, however. You can say no if you want, but if you do, please keep everything a secret. The world is not ready for the Beast Wars and Yang and I will deny everything you say if you tell. But if you do join, it will be dangerous. There could be a chance that you die. Knowing this, the choice is yours." Hearing this, Weiss and Blake bore different thoughts. Blake wanted to stop her brother and sisters in the White Fang from continuing this. She went to Beacon to make the world a better place. And with the Maximals, she felt it was more possible than before. Not to mention it felt nice to be around non-humans again. "Well, count me in." Weiss wasn't sure what to do. On one hand, if she joined, she might die. But the Predacons might go after her due to her status and family. But on the other hand, this is what she wanted, to make a better name for her family. She was sure sooner or later, the Beast Wars would become public. And when it did, the people will see a new side of the Schnee family. Either way, if she could get some of this technology, then it would help the world and her family name. "I think I will join as well. I can grant you access to the Schnee Dust Company resources and anything you may need. Maybe we can figure out how to hide the useless energon, from the public and transport it to here." Ruby smiled as Optimus nodded. Satisfied with their commitment, he handed them both a Maximal symbol. "This is proof of you being Maximals. They also double as communicators and are tracking devices to help us find you if we need to." The two girls nodded and took the symbols. Weiss placed hers on the inside the collar of her cropped coat while Blake placed on one of her black shoulder straps. As they placed their communicators, Optimus continued to speak to the girls. "While I'm in charge overall, Ruby is my second in command and in charge of the human forces." Curious, Weiss and Blake looked to Ruby with questioning looks as Weiss asked another question. "Why are you in charge? Is it about what happened in the forest?" Ruby chuckled nervously as she led Weiss and Blake to the lift with Yang accompanying them with the intent of going to the ground bridge. "It's an interesting story, Weiss. One I'll tell you once we're back at Beacon." Optimus then looked out at them as they walked outside and talked. He wondered what would be in store for them in the future. Whatever it was going to be interesting. And this is the end of part 5 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't really leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.